Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part two. We're moving into talking about morality and aggression, which are both things that developed during this time period. There are a lot of different theories on why these things developed. The first one is the psychoanalytical perspective from Freud. He really thought that your morality came from the guiding principles that we were given from the same sex parent. So, because I am a girl, I developed my morality by watching my mom's example. Another thing he really felt like this happened and occurred because of our superego's attempt to avoid guilt. So remember, our superegos is balance between what we want and also understanding the rules and kind of navigating that. Another thing he felt was that we behaved and we had a sense of morality because we were so fearful of the punishment and of losing our parents' love. That's what motivated us to continue to behave appropriately. We actually find is this is false. We know that children who experience high levels of fear for being punished actually end up detaching their actions from their emotions. So they're not thinking about how people feel or how they feel when they act. So Freud really didn't have it right on that one. What actually is true is that we know that children of this time period can anticipate that parents will feel disappointed when they do something wrong. We also know that they change their behavior because they develop empathy. This empathy based guilt, where they know that their actions may result in somebody feeling sad or disappointed. They have the ability to empathize, and that's what kind of is more of a deterrent than anything else. All right, moving into talking about what's called induction. Induction is providing understanding or explanation of why the behavior was not appropriate and who it affected. So, really, this idea of this is why we don't want to do these things, this is what might happen, really giving children rationale for how to engage and why to engage. And this really is this idea of having warm parenting, but having those limits in place so children understand what is not acceptable. So, they stop having less inappropriate behaviors. They're more honest about their behaviors when you do this. They're more likely to repair. So if something's gone wrong and they've hurt somebody's feelings, they're more likely to willing to try and repair that relationship. And they're going to display more pro-social behaviors when you utilize this method of induction. So what does induction actually look like? These are the components. You start by providing information about the expected behavior in the future. So if this was a child who maybe pushed somebody, the expectation might be, I understand you were really frustrated. In the future, you need to go get a teacher for help. And then you're going to explain the impact of the behavior. When you push someone, it hurts them. You could hurt them and hurt their body, or you might hurt their feelings. You provide a reason for change. When you push them, it's harder to have fun times with your friends. They may not want to play with you as much, or it's harder for your teacher to continue to teach. So you're giving them a reason to change their behavior. And then oftentimes when you go through this process, children will actually adopt it as a script of understanding of, okay, when I'm upset, I don't push, I go get my teacher. It's a script they can follow so they can be more successful in the future. Social learning theory believes that all of these things are learned because children are exhibiting these things because they're learning them through modeling, and that modeling is reinforced with what's called direct reinforcement. So there's actually two different types of reinforcement. There's direct and indirect reinforcement. A lot of times when we think about reinforcement, we're actually thinking about indirect reinforcement. So the idea of if you go for a run, you get to have tacos. That is an indirect reinforcement because it's not actually linked to the behavior. You're not actually getting tacos because you ran. It's kind of arbitrary. Versus you ran so you feel better. That is a direct reinforcement. It is directly linked to the behavior. Or, for example, if you went to the ice cream store and you said, I'd like one ice cream, and then they gave you an ice cream, that is direct reinforcement. It is directly linked to the behavior of asking for an ice cream. Now, if you went to the ice cream store and you said, I would like one ice cream, and then they gave you French fries and you like French fries, you still might ask for ice cream, but it's an indirect reinforcement. The same thing with potty training. A lot of times we do this with potty training. We say, if you go pee-pee in the potty, you can have a lollipop. That is an indirect reinforcement. That is not something that happens for everybody when they go potty in the potty. Not everybody gets a lollipop. What does happen that would be a direct reinforcement is that your pants stay dry. Okay, so the idea of for social learning theory is that they're modeled these behaviors and then they directly link utilizing them because they get positive feedback. That's a direct reinforcement for wanting to act in a certain way. All right, willingness to model behaviors really comes down to three different areas: warmth and responsiveness, competency, and consistency. So when we think about how much children are willing to model an adult's behaviors, it comes down to, do they feel like that adult is warm and responsive? Are their needs getting met by that adult? If they are, they're going to be more likely to model those behaviors. Do they feel like that adult is competent and understands what they're talking about? If they do, they're more likely to model those behaviors. Do they think that that adult is saying something that they also are going to do? So it's like walk the walk, talk the talk. Are you going to do what you say to do? If they are consistent, then that child is going to be more likely to model those behaviors. Talk about the effects of punishment. For example, spanking. Spanking is really not that effective because you're just modeling aggressive behavior. Harsh treatment. You're responding with anger and you're using personally threatened. You're feeling personally threatened. So using harsh treatment is also not effective for changing behavior. Frequent punishment is also not effective because what it teaches children is actually to avoid the parenting and it limits the teaching. So they're now avoiding being around the parents and they don't have any teaching about how to act in the future. Harsh punishment that immediately stops the behavior is not effective either because punitive parents increase the rates of punishment. So if it's immediately stopping the behavior, parents might think it's effective and they might utilize it more frequently, but it's not actually changing the behavior. Children are not learning how to engage appropriately. They're going to continue to do it. And it's just increasing the rates of how often the adults are going to do it. Use of corporal punishment on a child is actually more likely happens when it's been used on a parent previously. So if you were a parent that had corporal punishment, you're more likely to use this methodology in the future, and it is not an form of effective parenting. All right, alternatives to harsh punishment include taking a time out, and that's just taking a break from the situation, or a time in. This is a rather new concept, the idea that you're having a hard time participating right now, so I'm going to sit with you. You're taking a time in with me. I'm not excluding you. We're taking a moment together. You can also use withdrawal of privilege, so taking something away. That's another alternative to a harsh punishment. All of things being effective will depend on whether or not you're consistent, what kind of relationship they have with the child, and whether or not there's an explanation provided. So you need to be consistent. You can't sometimes get a timeout and then sometimes the behavior be okay. You need to feel like that person cares about you for it to be an effective use of consequence. And you also have to understand what you did wrong and what you could do doing better in the future so you're learning from that circumstance. When we look at the cognitive development perspective, we think about them as being active learners in their environment. So two things play into this in moral imperatives and understanding what's acceptable. Social conventions, those are those pieces that society sets for us. What do you do when you go to the store? Do you stand in line? Do you go right to the front? How do you eat dinner? Do you use your hands to eat your food or do you use a fork and a spoon? Those are set by society. Those are social conventions, and that kind of helps us learn in our process. And then we also have matters of personal choice, and these are things that we get to define and have value over and decide whether or not it's valuable to hold. All right, when we talk about aggression, there are two types of aggression. There's proactive aggression, which means that we are being actively aggressive before something happens to us because we want something, we want to meet our needs and desires. And this is happening earlier on. For example, if somebody had a toy that I really wanted, I might push them to get it from them. I'm trying to get my need met. I want it. I'm acting aggressively first. Reactive aggression is when you've been provoked or you're being defensive. If somebody is coming at you, you might put your hands up and push back. That's reactive. There's three types of aggression. Physical aggression, we're actually using our hands, our feet, we might be biting. Verbal aggression, when we're using our words. And then relational aggression, the idea of impacting our relationships and making you feel differently about somebody or having you feel differently about yourself. Physical aggression is way more likely to be used by boys. Girls are more likely to use relational aggression. This idea of you can't be in our group anymore, your friends said they don't like you. All of those pieces are more likely to be utilized by girls than by boys. Contributing factors to aggressive behavior include parenting practices. So if you've had a parent that has love withdrawal, so they'll take away that feeling of love or connectedness if you're in trouble, if you had physical punishments, if you've had negative comments told to you, or if you have inconsistent boundaries, all of that contributes to being more likely to be aggressive. You're also more likely to be aggressive if you have what's called social information processing deficit, and you can have that for two reasons. One, because of poor parenting practices, impacting your understanding of behaviors, or two, because you have a disconnect between your behaviors and the cost. You always kind of feel like the cost is worth the misbehavior or the indiscretion. Another thing that can impact aggression is media. We have readily available media on tablets and iPhones and TVs. And again, preschoolers really have trouble distinguishing what's real from what's fantasy. And so viewing violence as something that is real and is also something that is acceptable is going to increase aggressive behaviors. All right, with that, we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back and talk about gender typing. I will see you then.